Hello, beautiful people. I'm just sharing my screen here real quick. Share. Yay. I'm getting better at this, I think. Or hope, I don't know. Anyways, there I am. All right. So welcome to Environmental Science. I'll be your instructor and proctor this term. My name is Eleazar, if you don't know me. And anyways, I think we're gonna have fun this term. Environmental science is definitely one of my favorite classes. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it with me. Okay. So on this little sit down, I'm going to try to cut it into two parts. The first one is going to be defining environmental science, and then defining some of the problems that face us in environmental science. Give some examples of the progress that we're undergoing right now, which is excellent, actually. It really is. And then define the idea of sustainability, which is a key point in environmental science. Okay. So, what is environmental science? First of all, if I was to define it, I would call it a soft science. It is an all-inclusive science. What does all-inclusive means? It means that it really doesn't matter what discipline you go into. You can be an environmental scientist. You could be you could be an attorney. You can be a lobbyist. You can be a writer. You can be an artist. You can be a biologist. You could be a physician. You could be an epidemiologist. Really, there's nothing out there that cannot participate holistically within this picture of environmental science. Okay. It is an all-inclusive discipline. Okay. And these are incredible times to be alive, both because environmental science is giving us very challenging problems, but also because we're coming up with incredibly creative solutions, which is just wonderful. Okay. So, by definition, environmental science is a systematic study of our environment and our place in it. Okay. So, what's a systematic, ladies and gentlemen, is code for logical, is code for science, is code for the scientific method. Okay. So don't be surprised, we're going to be talking about the scientific method in a second here. Also, our place in it. Okay. A lot of people talk about save the earth. Here's a surprise. The earth is going to be fine. We might be in trouble, but the earth is going to be fine. So when we are proactive as environmental scientists, we are aspiring to be in balance with nature, not because we choose to be tree huggers, but because at the end of the day, if we're in balance with nature, it means that nature will have a place for us in it, and we will have life. We will have an opportunity to have progeny. We'll have an opportunity to exist in the future. Okay. So it behooves us to be interested in this discipline of environmental science, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is reach an equilibrium that will allow us to exist in the future. Okay. Now, most environmental problems, because environmental systems are complex, very complex and interconnected, okay, it takes a lot of fields to answer these questions. So you can't really take a single topic in environmental science and speak about it in isolation, because it's going to be tethered to everything else. You can't talk about agriculture without talking about precipitation, without talking about climate change, without talking about uh, uh, um, the way that our atmosphere moves, without talking about what's taking place in other countries such as China and India. Okay, you cannot speak about a single concept in environmental science in isolation. Every concept in environmental science is interconnected with everything else out there. And that's something that we have to get into our heads, because we have a tendency to simplify and minimize our problems. And the fact is that we can't do that anymore. We have to think in an all-inclusive nature, and we have to think in a global uh, uh, paradigm if we are to solve these problems. These are not problems of the United States. These are problems of the world. And the United States cannot succeed if the rest of the world is burning in flames. The entire world has to come together and choose to better themselves. We cannot do it in isolation, okay? So all environmental systems are complicated and they are interconnected. Um, how do we study environmental science? Observation. Again, this implies a scientific method. We can use quantitative reasoning. So in science, we have quantitative experiments and we have qualitative experiments. Quantitative implies that you measure something. Qualitative implies that you just report an outcome in the absence of numerical data. Qualitative reasoning is not very useful, okay? Anything that can be done qualitatively by observation can be reported quantitatively more effectively. So we have a tendency to move away from qualitative reasoning in environmental science, okay? We have to deal with uncertainty, okay? Because again, every topic is interconnected. So dealing with one topic implies that we have to deal with the uncertainty of its effects on all the others, okay? And we have to deal with what's called critical and analytical thinking, and we're going to hit that in a little bit. Uncertainty is very interesting. The President Theodore Roosevelt was heard quoted one time that he wished he could find a single-handed economist, okay? And obviously every president has an economist that tries to convey to them, how to deal with problems. And the president would ask the economist, what would happen if we increase the interest rate in money? And the economist would say, well, on the one hand, this would happen, which is good. But on the other hand, this would happen, which is bad. Well, that's not good. Well, what if we lowered the interest rate? Well, in that case, on the one hand, this would happen, but then this, on the other hand, this would happen, which is bad. And obviously the president doesn't want to know that every decision he makes has a positive and a negative. He wants a decision that only comes out with a positive. There's no such thing there's no such animal in the world. Every decision that we make has positive impact and negative impact. There's always that uncertainty that if you make a decision and you see that everything that it does is going to be good, be careful. You have probably overlooked something, because every decision that we make has both positive and negative impact. And so there's always this uncertainty about doing something where, did we overlook something? Is there something that we forgot to take into account? Okay. All right. So the main themes in environmental science: environmental quality, which deals obviously with the environment, human population and well-being, which deals with us, and natural resources, which deals with the environment, ecosystem, and what they provide for us, okay? So as an example, environmental quality, okay, deals with climate change, the temperature of the earth, clean water, air quality, soil quality, pollution, those kind of things. Those are environmental quality. The next one, which is human population well-being, deals with our population growth, how we deal with hunger and food, how we deal with information and education. Again, these are all variables that deal with humans. Uh, the impact of poor and wealthy nations. Okay. This last one is actually very, very important. Okay. We're going to talk very soon here about an event called demographic transition. And in demographic transition, one of the things that we address is the fact that poor countries have a higher fertility rate than richer nations. Okay. These two events are so inextricably connected that we cannot tell which one is cause and which one is effect. Okay. So becoming wealthy lowers fertility, and lowering fertility causes wealth. It doesn't matter which one you affect, the other one has the predicted effect. So inextricably connected. So again, this is a conversation that we're going to have that's called demographic transition, but it is important for you to know that richer nations have a lower fertility than poor nations. Okay. Um, Natural resources. Okay. So natural resources, that's what our department used to be called. So natural resources can be animals, it can be forests, it can be plants, it can be nature reserves, it can be marine resources, energy resources. In other words, those resources that nature provides for us. We shouldn't take it that way, but that's the way we take it, is those things that nature, those resources that nature provides for us. So we're talking about animals, plants, fish, energy, minerals, etc., natural resources. Very important. Okay. Now we go into the second topic, which is the problems that are affecting us. Okay. So this is interesting because, well, like I tell you, these are incredible times to be alive in. All right. And some of the things that are happening are so counterintuitive. Okay. So let's start with this one. One of the first concerns that we have has to do with human population. We have about 7 billion, about 7.6 billion people on the earth, and 80 million more each year. So we are increasing at an exponential rate. We're following a curve that's called the logistic curve, which means that our population rate should decrease right before we hit a top called the carrying capacity. Okay. But present trends put us at somewhere between 8 and 10 billion people by 2050. Wow. Can you imagine living on the planet with 10 billion people? That's incredible. The shocking part is that there's actually estimates out there as high as 40 billion. What would we do? What would we do? Okay. So again, this is both a crisis and an opportunity. Why? Because population increase is a crisis, but the opportunity is that we're actually doing a lot better. The fertility rates are falling in many places. And like I said just a second ago, we're dealing with this thing called demographic transition, where as countries become wealthier and industrialized, their fertility rate falls down. Okay. And so we believe that we're going to hit dynamic equilibrium here in the year 2050, and our population is going to cease to continue to go exponential. This is incredible. Okay, this is incredible, but it is happening. Oh, here we go. Well, another problem. If you're not tired of hearing about this, then I don't know where you've been, but we have to deal with the fact that our Earth is heating up. We have this problem with carbon dioxide, and with methane, which are greenhouse gases that are increasing the temperature of our world. And there's another problem too that people are not aware of. It's called global dimming. So in global dimming, what's happening is that we have particulate matter that's going into the atmosphere of the Earth. It's blocking out the sunlight, and it's actually dimming the Earth. This is what's keeping us alive, believe it or not. So we're causing both a problem and a solution at the same time. If it wasn't for global dimming, the temperature of the Earth would be much higher than it is right now, and we would be in a lot of trouble, okay? But the reason that this is important is because as we back away from this problem and we try to decrease the amount of green gases that we're producing, we also have to back off on the particulate matter so that we don't go from hot to an ice age, okay? It has to go slowly. So this is very, very interesting. It says climate models indicate that by 2100, if current trends continue, global mean temperatures will probably warm between 2 and 6 degrees, which is crazy. This will result in a decrease in glaciers and snowfields, okay? So at the end of the day, the reason we care is because this water has to go somewhere. And it's going to go on land. There's going to be worldwide flooding, okay? So we need to do something to slow down this global warming. And the funny part, all the solutions are here. All we need to do is use them. Hunger, okay? So this is something that's interesting. Look at this. Over the past century, global food production has increased faster than human population growth. Did you hear that? Global food production has increased faster than human population growth. That means that people are growing at an exponential rate, and the amount of food that we're making is even more than that. Wow. We should be proud of that. That despite the number of people that we have in the world, we're not just keeping up, we're producing more food. However, was a problem. We still have chronic hunger going on, okay? So we attribute this hunger to lack of distribution of resources. Look at this, 60 million people face acute food shortages due to weather, politics, or war. This is not acceptable, you know? So how can we be so smart to produce more than enough food for the world and then fail to give it to them? Clean water, okay? Another thing where we're doing wonderful things. Singapore, for example, has a world-class desalination plant that produces more fresh water than any other country in the world. I mean, the technology is here. It's incredible. It's useful. It's beautiful. Yet, 1.1 billion people, this is 1/6 of our population in the world, lack access to safe drinking water. Unacceptable. Every year, polluted water contributes to the death of more than 15 million people. You know, here's SARS creating 120,000 deaths in the United States. We're being traumatized by this. Imagine what would happen if we lost 15 million people. And that's how many people are being lost to unsafe drinking water. 40% of the population live in countries where water demands now exceed supplies. All this can be solved with technology. Energy resources, okay? This is one of the most peculiar problems that we have. And the reason I say that is because, oh my gosh, the solutions are so wonderful. They're so incredible. They're so impactful. They've been here for over 50 years. And the only reason that we keep on having these problems is because we choose not to accept new types of energy. We are so hard-headed. The solutions to so many problems are here. It's just a matter of us saying, okay, let's do it. And one of the main ones is energy. I mean, think about it. The climax of fossil fuels has already come and gone. That means that the fossil fuel reserves are on the way down. We're not getting any more fossil fuels. We're getting less. And despite this fact, we refuse to move away from fossil fuels. Very soon, we're not going to have a choice because there's not going to be any fossil fuels left. Okay? So, fossil fuels, oil, coal, natural gas, presently provide about 80% of the energy used in industrialized countries. Okay? Um, Again, why do we care? We care because these fossil fuels produce carbon dioxide and they produce methane, which are the greenhouse gases. Coal in particular is dirtier and it provides sulfites. In other words, this guy can produce sulfuric acid if you burn it incorrectly. And here's the interesting part. Again, mind-blowing, mind-blowing. We have technology to burn coal cleanly. We choose not to use it. Why? I don't know. I can't even answer that question. So we could choose to continue to use coal for an indefinite amount of time and not create carbon dioxide, not create carbon monoxide, not create sulfites. And the technology has been here for over 50 years. We just haven't used it. Investing in renewable energy and energy conservation measures could give us cleaner, less destructive options. Like I said, it's a matter of time. Air quality, okay? Now the poster children for poor air quality is China and India, and they're hard-headed about it, okay? China in particular, every time that you tell them, hey, don't open another coal generating plant, does exactly what they do. So imagine you have a state like California who has spent literally billions of dollars in maintaining good air quality, and then China opens up 8 coal electric generating plants, and all that garbage makes it across the Pacific into the Pacific Northwest, and it goes into our atmosphere. What good did it do us to clean our environment so that China can throw all that garbage into the Pacific Northwest? It doesn't help us. What's the solution? We need to talk to China and go, stop it. Move to newer, renewable energy sources, you know? So those are the conversations that we're having right now. It says 3 million people die each year from diseases triggered by air pollution. Interestingly, a lot of those are in China and India. That's what this has made them work on air quality a little bit. Otherwise, they wouldn't have cared. Okay. 2 billion metric tons of air pollutants, not including carbon dioxide or wind-blown soil, are released each year. 2 billion metric tons. That is a lot. Marine resources. Okay. Look at this. More than 3/4 of 441 fish stocks for which information is available are severely depleted or in urgent need of better management. And here's the funny part. There's management that can solve all these problems. They can make the fish healthier. They can make the ecosystems healthier. They can allow us to eat better food that's cleaner. This is not science fiction. We have all this. All we have to do is choose to use it, and we'll be better for it. Okay, so enough about the bad news. Here's the good news. Okay, population pollution. Okay, populations in the 1960s, the average number of children born per woman worldwide has decreased from 5 children to 2.45. What's the magic number? 2. 2 is called replacement. So when mom and dad die, that's 2 people pass away, they should have 2 children. When we go down to 2, we're going to be at an even keel, and population will neither increase or decrease. So you can see that going from 5 to 2.45 is excellent. Okay. We estimate that the world population will stabilize at about 8.9 billion by the year 2050. If that happens, it's going to be, well, good, very good. Signs of progress, health. Okay. Um, Life-threatening infections like smallpox, polio have been reduced sharply. A lot of this has to do by intervention by the Red Cross, for example. Um, and we, historically, not now, our present administration is very strange. And I'm not going to talk about it because it'll sound like I'm trying to be political. But historically, the United States has spearheaded this health intervention. And we go usually to West Africa, like Kenya, Tanzania, and we provide a lot of health and uh, uh, a lot of medicine to a lot of these people. Okay, and in the past they have relied on us, and we have provided it for them. So, anyways, this is a good sign. A good sign of progress is health. Renewable energy. So we are investing more and more in wind, in solar, biomass power. That's algae. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, the efficiency of the way that we build homes has increased significantly. Okay. The cost of solar power has plummeted, which is fantastic. Um, so, what does this mean? This means that this renewable energy is going to become more and more attractive over time. More people are going to move towards it. Uh, we're going to have people become trained. They're going to have better paying jobs. They're going to have technologically advanced jobs. It's going to be green energy, which doesn't produce carbon dioxide. Um, and It's nothing new. It's all been here. We're just simply choosing to use it. That's the only real difference. When we hit the chapter on energy, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of videos on the incredible things that we're doing right now with energy. I mean, everything from nuclear energy to the new solar cells to new windmills that we're producing. I mean, the technology is so impressive and it's beautiful. Solar fuel cells. You're going to get tired of me talking about fuel cells. In my opinion, fuel cells are the future, and we're going to do incredible things with them. Education, okay? The education of whom? The education of women predominantly, okay? So historically and contemporarily, women have always gotten a poor rap. Um, they have been mistreated. They have been treated like they've been treated like cattle. They have been treated like property. Okay, and what we are learning the hard way, apparently, is that the more that we empower women and the more that we educate women, uh, there will be a significant bring about a significant decline in the birth rate worldwide, and that is actually desirable. So, information and education for women in particular is a wonderful sign of progress. Okay, conservation of forests and nature preserves. We have slowed down deforestation in Asia. This is a lie. I don't know why our author has this. Actually, if we've the amount of deforestation that's going on in Brazil right now is unprecedented. It's horrible, and nobody can seem to talk sense into them right now. So this is actually a bad point here. Um, However, worldwide we are increasing the number of nature preserves and continue to fight poachers and illegal harvesting of endangered animals. So that's important. Marine resources. We're learning to manage marine resources a lot better. Okay. Um, there's reserves that have been placed in California, Hawaii, New Zealand, Great Britain. Uh, these reserves are not meant to uh, inhibit us from having food. They're meant to protect the fish so that they can grow and mature and eventually become food for us. If we overharvest and we get rid of the germline and we get rid of the smallest fish that are out there, there's nothing that's going to be left for our consumption, none at all. So sometimes all you can do is protect these ecosystems and prevent people from having access to them so that they can grow and consequently become sustainable. Okay. Um, so I just used the S word, arguably the most important word in environmental science, sustainability. Okay. Um, how would we define it? Sustainable development, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's sustainability. If you have a plan and that plan is not sustainable, you are not doing anything useful. Okay? If you, any successful business is sustainable. What does this mean? This means that a business not only has to make profit, it has to have enough money to pay its employees, pay for the merchandise that it needs to continue to be open, pay its taxes, and be there next year. That's sustainability, meeting the needs of the present, paying everybody without compromising the ability. That means having the money necessary to buy additional merchandise to be open the next year. That is sustainability. If you have a business and it is not sustainability, it's not going to be open for long. If you have an environmental plan and you cannot demonstrate that that plan is sustainable, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because it's not going to provide what is necessary for the future. Okay, so sustainability is one of the most important words in this entire dialogue. Let's see. Poverty and affluence. Okay. What are we? What are you talking about? The fact that environment, the environment, and poverty are linked. What does that mean? Poverty is passed from one generation to the next primarily through the lack of available opportunities. This is important to remember. Okay. In other words, if you can't have lawmakers provide opportunities, provide jobs that are sustainable for the population, then that poverty is going to continue. It's going to remain there. Okay. So poverty is passed from one generation to the next primarily through a lack of available opportunities. This means no education. This means no health opportunities. This means no jobs. So why is this important? We need to break this chain so that poverty doesn't continue on to the next generation. Affluence, okay? This is affluence, wealth is almost as big of a problem as poverty. It says here, the U.S. with less than 5% of the world's total population consumes about 25% of commercially traded commodities such as oil and produces 25 to 1/2 of most industrial wastes. Think about that for a second. We have about 320 million people in the United States, 5% of the world's population. And we are so entitled. We're so entitled that we consume 25% of the world's commodities and produce between 25 and a half of the waste of the world. Um, we are in a throwaway society that is disgusting. Uh, People in other parts of the world call our garbage useful material still. You know, um, it's incredible. That's the way we have been taught, and we need to move away from it. We cannot throw away as much material as we do. Um, as the rest of the world seeks to achieve a similar standard of living with higher consumptions of conveniences and consumer goods, what will be the effect on the planet? Can you imagine if the rest of the world chose to do what we did? There would not be enough anything to go around. The consumption is out of hand, and again, we have just been we have not always been like this. This is a relatively new development, and we have been educated to be wasteful in so many ways. It's ridiculous. And we need to move away from it because we're not the only ones in the world. We might be the luckiest ones in the world, but it, we need to be careful with what we have. Let's see. Countries with the highest per capita income, more than 40,000 per year, make up only 10% of the world's population. These countries are all in Europe, North America, Japan, Singapore, Australia, and the United Arab Emirates. More than 70% of the world's population, 5 billion people out of 7.5, live in countries where the average per capita income is less than $5,000, roughly 1/10 of the US average. And these countries include China and India. If you think that's bad, you should look at Africa. It is not rare to run into sub-Saharan countries in Africa where the annual income is $200 or $300. Can you imagine being able to live on $200 or $300 a year? Not even the poorest college student can imagine living on $200 or $300 a year, and yet that's what these people live on. Okay, so this is why we keep on saying that in environmental science, we're global. We're looking at this and we're noticing that the stratification of wealth and goods is not taking place, and it needs to be fixed. Now, you can make the argument, who cares? We're doing okay. The heck with everybody else. You can't make that argument. And because that's what causes civil unrest and revolts in these countries that end up affecting us. I don't know if you guys remember the Central American caravans that came to the United States. Okay. A lot of people thought that this was out of the blue. It wasn't. The truth of the matter is that up until recently, the United States have been supplying these dictatorial Central American countries with money and resources. And it was keeping them somewhat afloat. The second that our present administration shut down that aid, now we have these caravans, these exodus from these Central American countries marching north towards our border. Who do we have to blame? Ourselves. We're literally the ones that caused the problem. You cannot take the livelihood away from people. If you do, something is going to break, and it did. This is true everywhere. It's happened in Europe. It's happened in Africa. It's happened here in the United States. You cannot ignore people. And this is what drives people towards communism. Because one of the precepts of communism is that we might not be wealthy, but whatever is there is going to be distributed evenly throughout everybody. So communism is very popular with the very, very poor. Well, that's a problem. It should not be attractive. The market system should be attractive. How do we do that? We give these poor people a fighting chance to make something of themselves. That's all they need, is a fighting chance. So it's important. Wealth has to be stratified. Human Development Index, okay? This is indices that view hunger, poverty, education, health, okay? And the lower the index, the worse that all these items are. So you can see the red is an index of 0.5. And there's my sub-Saharan countries. See that? And then over here, I think we're looking at Turkey over here, but predominantly sub-Saharan countries. And then if you go into 0.51 to 0.65, our orange, we're looking at Western and Eastern Africa, Central America, the countries I just talked about. This is exactly where that exodus came out of, right out of these countries. Okay. India, okay. Nepal, and then 0.66 to 0.75, there's China, Western South America, Northern and Southern Africa. And then who's doing the best? Well, we're looking at the United States, Canada, Western Europe, Netherlands, Australia, Japan. No surprise, right? So the lower the HDI, the worse off that these countries are in hunger, poverty, education, and health. Okay, and I'm going to stop that so I can give you a little bit of a break, and I'll come back in a little bit. Okay, let's see if I can. This is my stop share, and see you guys in a bit. Okay.